Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I'm Dr. Mudgil. Through this podcast, I'll be sharing stories that I find personally inspiring and that I know will inspire you too. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Dr. Chithra Durgam. She was featured in Gary Vaynerchuk's recent New York Times bestselling book, Crushing It. She's a dentist, an entrepreneur, a wife, and a mother. She has a great story, and I know you're going to love it. All right, y'all, welcome to my podcast. I'm super excited to have a legend here. This is Dr. Chithra Durgam, who was featured in Gary Vee's New York Times best-selling book, Crushing It. And, we became Instagram friends because I was very inspired by her story. And I think you guys will all love to hear too. I don't know much of her story personally either, so it's very exciting for me to dive in and learn more about Chithra and learn all about her hustle and what brought her to the tremendous success that she is now. So welcome, Chithra. Welcome to my podcast. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor, really. I appreciate it.
Honor is all mine, trust me. So I guess with this sort of thing, I generally like to start with the beginning, where you grew up, just like your childhood, what kind of, I think those sort of backstories really lend to your development into where you are today. So let's start with that.
Sure. I actually so I've been moving quite a bit in my childhood. But I spent a majority of my childhood in Colorado. So I was there for 12 years. And
what do your folks do? Were you born in Colorado?
I was born in Indiana.
Okay.
So we kind of headed west from there. So my parents, my mom is an accountant and my father's an engineer.
Okay, cool.
So they, so we ended up moving to Colorado and, we lived in a very non-diverse neighborhood, grew up doing kind of different things than all my friends were doing. So we did a lot of outdoor activities, skiing. Uh-huh. My parents were really, in terms of their focus with us, they really pushed us to be street smart and street savvy as well as academically smart.
How many siblings do you have?
I have one other sibling,
okay.
6 years younger than me.
Okay, yeah, my brother's 7 years older than me, so kind of similar.
Yeah.
So you're the oldest.
Yeah, exactly. So we learned a lot of different things, like my dad wanted us to learn how to drive a stick shift car manual, even though, it's kind of not necessarily the most important thing.
Yeah.
He just wanted to challenge us, and he always gives us different opportunities, always wanted to push us to take risks when we were younger. And even if it didn't work out, it's what did you learn from that?
Right.
And that was basically my entire childhood was all about that. And so I think from a young age, I was pretty much learning a lot about how to just be able to do my own thing and not worry about what other people thought.
Wow.
It was expected of us to do well, but in school, for instance, I was on the debate team and I'd wear a suit jacket to school. And I was really serious about it. Nobody else would do it. Sometimes people would be like, "Why are you wearing that?"
Right.
But I was kind of just forming my own personality, and I wasn't really letting other people's mindset or opinions bother me at all. And so from a young age, because I had that, and because I also kind of looked different, honestly, than everybody else in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I was probably the only person that was non-white.
Same here.
So,
I was the only brown kid.
So you learn a lot about kind of being internally focused. What is it you want to do? And so from there, it set a great foundation for me. And my parents eventually moved to Washington State, where they are now. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I went to Washington University in St. Louis for undergrad, and then went to Northwestern for dental school.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's quite a story there. Are your parents first generation? Were they born in India and they came here for work?
Exactly.
And your younger siblings, you have a sister, you said, or?
A brother.
A brother. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have very similar upbringing for me too. First generation, my family came from India, my parents came from India, I was born here. And the same sort of thing, I was the only brown kid in my neighborhood. And I think by the time I got to high school, there were three of us. And it's amazing. It was only, I'm 43 now, so it was, 30 years ago-ish, but it's just, people thought that the three of us, although we looked nothing alike, that we were related to each other and siblings, being the only three brown kids. But with growing up, it's funny because obviously I knew I was different, but it's just like you kind of assimilate. And it really, until I got older, I didn't really obviously I realized that I was different, but I just always kind of thought of myself like everybody else, even though there was there's like the little bit of racism and all that sort of stuff growing up when you sort of grow up as the only person who's different.
Right.
But I think for me personally, it was when I was much older that I realized that, wow, like I'm really going to embrace this difference. Like it's a really special thing. But it sounds like for you, that sort of happened very early on. And like sounds like your dad, I'm sure your mom also kind of really encouraged you to be different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember thinking like my friend, when I was younger, the first album that she gave me was a Motley Crue record.
Yeah.
That shows you how old I was. And, I was interested in academics and she was interested in something else. And even though everybody had their own path, I was still focused on whatever it is I was doing. But I would say in some respects, in terms of my childhood, I think I was noticeably, affected by the fact that I looked different than everyone else. And it wasn't until I got into college that I think things changed and I started to realize this isn't such a big deal anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it did make a difference for me, I think. And I remember when I was young, I was like, I want to move to a more diverse neighborhood when I get older. I want to go east where there's different communities. So it definitely made an impact on me. And I think because of my childhood and because of some of the experiences I had to deal with, I think it makes me more empathetic. I wasn't necessarily the most popular person when I was younger. But then when I got older, I kind of feel like everything changed 360. And because of that, now, whenever anybody reaches out to me or if somebody has a question for me, I'm very empathetic to understanding, where they're coming from, maybe some of the insecurities they may have, if they lack confidence, trying to build them up. And I think that has helped me more than anything. And then it's really, really reinforced in me that, when you have bad experiences, sometimes when you're younger, it actually can be a benefit to you at some point in your life.
Totally, yeah. I totally agree with that 100%. Did your parents push you into a medical field? I mean, this is it's sort of an ethnocentric statement, but being Indian, it's sort of a really big thing in our culture to you gotta be a doctor or a lawyer or something, but medicine.
Yeah, I saw the discussion you had with your mom.
Yeah.
Talking about that. Yeah, I think that for me it was not the case. They never expected us. They just wanted us to work hard and live to our potential, but it was never expected for us to go to medical school or go to dental school or be an engineer. And so I actually was trying to convince them that this is what I wanted to do. And had to have a good reason as to why I wanted to do it. So it was a little bit different. My parents are very open-minded and somewhat different for, parents having had immigrated from India. I think they wanted us to learn to adapt to our culture, but they also wanted us to make sure that we were able to fit in and be confident in whatever it is we were doing. Wow.
It seemed like they were pretty progressive, pretty hip.
Yeah, extremely progressive.
Desi family.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. So then what motivated you? What were your reasons? You said you had to justify to your dad and mom why you wanted to be a dentist. What were those reasons?
So to be honest, when I was younger, I was very introverted. When I was much younger, which is surprising to some people. Yeah. But I was very introverted, and I think I still carry a little bit of that with me now, because if I go to a party, I love sitting with one person and learning everything about them in that one hour. And so when I was younger, I explained to them basically that I think this is the best for me because I have somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit and I wanted to eventually own my own office. In the same sense, I wanted to help people improve their lives and something that was a little bit more cosmetic focused. And I felt like dentistry in that respect and having a family would be ideal for me. And so that's pretty much what I was explaining to them at the time. And at the end of the day, I always had a real, entrepreneurial spirit in terms of what I wanted to do eventually. And then I realized as I've gotten older that whatever it is you plan, things kind of change so much. So all that planning that I was thinking about when I was younger, things are so much different than what I expected. That it's almost as if it's better to just kind of take things as it comes. And so when I was explaining to my parents, I had told them that I was interested on the business side of dentistry and learning more about how to market my office and do a good job of doing that.
So you knew that before you even went to dental school? Like this was all sort of thought out back then?
When I was really young, to be honest with you, I haven't told this story to anybody. My father had a magazine that had George Soros on it, and regardless of whether you believe in his ideals or not, his progressive approach to helping people who are in need, whether they're drug abusers or whatever it may be, was very inspiring to me. That somebody that had money, who had earned it, and did all these things entrepreneurial-wise, was able to help others. So I definitely felt like that was the key to being able to help others. And I thought that in some respects, whatever I do in the future, in terms of helping people, that would be one step towards my ultimate goal of really making an impact in the world.
Wow, that's pretty deep for like a 19 or 20-year-old.
Yeah, it's definitely like based on my upbringing. My father always had like these business books around. Some of them were kind of more on the fluffier side, but some of them were very, really good. And so even now, like after learning more about Gary, I haven't really read that many books, but I recently read one and it kind of inspired me back to like my high school days of, like learning more about entrepreneurship on the, without all the fluff is really interesting to me.
It's like, what was the book?
It's a book by Dave Meltzer, Connected to Goodness. He's a phenomenal person. He's pretty strong in Instagram, and he has 2 books, both of which I read in one sitting.
Wow.
So it's very impactful, really good stuff.
Wow, I'll check it out. I've been like on this crazy tear like the last like 7 or 8 months, like literally reading like tons of these types of books. And so I'll put that on a list. I'm like like literally stacks of books over here, like like stuff that I've been reading. Yeah. And that's kind of how I fell into Gary too, just kind of like, someone that I met, and I was going through some stuff in my practice, like staff turnover and sort of a period of this intense self-evaluation.
Which is something every office goes through, so yeah.
Totally.
So going through those times is tough.
It's really tough, but I think it really helped me a lot. I'm glad I went through it because, just kind of hustled through it and sort of reevaluated like myself, and that's kind of what motivated all this sort of stuff too, like the things that I want, sort of be more, be marketed on social media and doing these sorts of things like podcasts and stuff like that, because it's, it's fascinating to me to like learn from other people,
Right, exactly.
So you went to dental school, and how did you fall into being a pediatric dentist? Is that something you always wanted to do?
So actually, I'm a general dentist.
All right.
A lot of people think I'm a pediatric dentist, but I am a general dentist. But we do see children here.
Okay.
So part of the reason why you may think that is because I'm pretty strong on musically in terms of my focus. And the reason why I was doing that was, one, a lot of the people, once they were seeing the videos, and most of them were children, they were able to use that influence to tell their parents about me. And so it was kind of more word of mouth.
How did you get into that?
So that's how people found out about me. So I ended up getting quite a few children coming to the office that way. Yeah.
So before you did the Musical.ly stuff, you were predominantly seeing adults, and then sort of like evolved into seeing kids, or?
We had already been seeing quite a few kids.
Okay.
And so, to be honest, a lot of parents were finding out about us from their kids.
Oh, wow.
And so that influence, it's almost like when, a child goes to the grocery store and they see a cereal box and it has like the Captain Crunch guy in the front. Like that cartoon character inspires them to want to buy it, and then they tell their parents and their parents get it. It's kind of the similar concept in the office. So, and I think we were, when we have patients come into our office, we do a patient tour. We show them the office and we discuss with them a little bit about all these things that we're doing. And so adults were slowly finding out more about us. And I think just like kids, adults like to have fun too.
Yeah.
So it ended up, once I pushed it to Instagram, I think more adults were finding out about us from that sense. But going back to your original thing, you were asking what inspired me to go into dentistry.
Yeah.
In terms of I wanted to be able to, working with kids is important to me, but part of the reason why I did Musical.ly was also because we were discussing at the time to do our mouth guards. And most of the time the children are the ones that are going to be going for that. So it was like a platform for us to eventually talk to children about the mouth guards as well and showcase them in videos. And so that was part of our reason for doing Musically. But in the office, I wanted to, work more with, getting all demographics, but we were really working to get children and doing cosmetic dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like ultimately my interest. So most of our practice is doing, crowns, veneers, smile makeovers, whitening, and all of that. And so every day trying to raise the bar in that sense really inspired us.
So tell me about, obviously the Musically is like a huge part, for me personally, of your story. Your Musically is like legit. It's unbelievable. It's crazy like how good it is.
Thank you.
And, I love watching all the videos when you post to Instagram. I watch all of them. They're incredibly cool. What started that? Like, first of all, what was the motivation behind it? Like, were you doing it with your kids? And you're like, wow, this is cool. And I'm kind of like, you're kind of messing around with it. And then you started transitioning that into your practice. How did you get so damn good at it? It's like literally professional.
Appreciate it. Actually, my kids were not involved at all. I
only know about it through my kids, which is so funny. Like,
Okay, yeah. So my kids were not involved in it at all. I actually haven't really told this story to anybody. So when I first started, Gary was on one of his, I think, podcasts, or it was one of his Ask Gary Vee shows, where he was interviewing a chef, Marcus, who owns the Red Rooster. And he was telling him every day you should post 3 Musicallys. For 1 month, he told him. And I was like, okay. So he's giving that advice. I should follow that. At the time, I was doing like 1 here or there. I wasn't really doing it.
For your office? Like you were just kind of messing around with it?
I was. And I'll be honest, I was doing it on Musically. I wasn't posting it anywhere else. I wanted to see if I was like halfway good at it, like for my own standards.
Are you into it? Like, are you into music? Like, are you really into, like...
I'm into music,
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I'm into comedy, like being funny, making fun of myself, I think is really interesting to me. So at the time, I was doing quite a few of the Musicallys, but I wasn't really sharing it with people that I knew. And I was trying to get feedback, and then I was adapting. So somebody would look at it. Everyone was saying really nice things, but I have a critical eye, so I would look at it, and then I would look at other people's videos, and I'll say, okay, that's an interesting way of doing it. And you have to really know how to manipulate the phone to do some of these things.
Right.
It's not as easy sometimes as it appears. Yeah. So I was taking quite a bit of time trying to figure out just the app, and then it would get updated and have to run it again.
Right.
So I was doing this, privately. I decided I was going to do it for 1 summer.
So when was this? Like what? 2 years ago? 3? Like when exactly?
That was I think now 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
So I just did it or was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago for that 1 summer, and basically finished everything. And then when I started feeling confident with some of the material, I started posting it on Instagram.
Okay.
And it was a decision based on, I did it on Musically because I wanted to see, as a healthcare provider, I didn't want people to take me as, somebody who didn't take my work seriously.
Of course, yeah.
I wanted to make sure there was a differentiation between me and the type of quality of work that I expect from myself, but that I'm also, as a dentist, trying to relate to patients in a way that they don't feel uncomfortable talking to me about whatever it is they need, and just overcoming that initial obstacle that some people have to go and see the dentist.
Right.
And so everything that I do is more about explaining that, so that people understand that, you ask some of my patients, they would be completely surprised at some of the things that they see on Musically, because they see me more as a serious person. I get along really well with them and I joke around, but I make a big differentiation between the two. So as long as I'm able to maintain that, I felt nothing wrong with what I was doing. And so that's why I continued to do it, because I felt like it was getting me rapport with people. And the one thing that I realized is that as professionals, we are always concerned with what other people think.
Yeah.
When we're marketing based on what our competitors are doing sometimes, what the neighbor down the street is doing, as opposed to coming up with original ideas that we could follow.
Right.
And also, we're always looking at whatever it is that we're doing, what is that going to do for us next? instead of just doing something and see where it's going to take us.
Right.
Okay, this is something I like. Where could it possibly take me?
Right.
Like, let's keep going with this and let's see what happens.
Yeah, that is great advice.
It's very tough sometimes for people to get out of the mindset of having a goal and saying, okay, I need to do this to get this. But that's been a breakthrough for me, really. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. I did a podcast, my last podcast was with a young doctor in Texas, and great story. We'll be posting it next week. And, you know, one of the things, just when I was talking to him, I realized, like, where I am in my practice now, I've been in private practice for like 10 years, nearly 10 years, and, you know, been in medicine for longer than that, obviously, through training and stuff like that. And the older I get, not that I'm some old doctor, but the more confident I get in what I'm doing, the more freedom I feel being myself. So I was always like very self-conscious about posting, like, you know, I'm super into like fitness and all sorts of stuff, and I was already self-conscious about posting it. But now, like, kind of like what you're saying, it's me, you know, and my patients really want to kind of glimpse into me, but I'm still obviously like professional. I take what I do like extraordinarily seriously, and like, you know,
right.
I you know, pay incredible attention to detail and all those sorts of things, and like, you know, that's right. My practice is everything to me, and patient care is obviously number one, and, you know, I always practice by the golden rule. But that doesn't mean that I can't be me, you right. know? And that's what I see in you musically. It's awesome, you know, because I think patients really, it's not for patients, you're doing it for you, but right. patients like you because of you, because...
Right. And you know, it's funny because a lot of people don't realize, as someone who owns their own practice, the more you put out about yourself, the more you're going to attract, in terms of patients, right. people who like you for who you are.
Right, and that's who you want. Yeah.
The amazing relationship that you can start creating with these new patients that come in who like you for who you are yeah. is far better than any other relationship that you could get from any other type of referral.
Totally.
And I think that's something that's completely missed by a lot of people. The yeah. more you put out about yourself, the more you attract people who are like you into your life.
I couldn't agree with that more. Yeah, I think that's yeah. right on. So tell me a little bit about Roar mouth guards. You know, that's like I see lots of really cool stuff. Like you did some work with Snoop a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
You're traveling all over the place. Just tell us a little bit about, you know, what that's all about, how you're, you know, getting involved with these celebrities and these, you know, youth football leagues and stuff. I mean, it's pretty awesome to see. So I think, you know, everyone would love to hear more about that.
I appreciate that. So we were doing mouth guards for our own patients, and we found that what was tough to find was that a lot of people don't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a mouth guard that's right. custom for their child when they have like what's called a mixed dentition, where like the primary teeth and the permanent teeth are changing for 6 years. So we are trying to develop now something that allows people to get a custom mouth guard that's for their particular teeth. It's an impression made of their teeth, which is custom and is somewhat affordable for most people. So we do this for teams. We've been doing it for NFL athletes. We've been doing it for UFC athletes.
Oh, wow.
And the benefit has been that, and you know, we ended up doing Snoop Dogg's Special Stars League. We ended up doing mouth guards for them. And part of the reason why we are getting the notoriety and more people are interested in what we're doing is because our mouth guards, we make them for the particular sport. So if somebody is in MMA, they're going to need a different type of mouth guard.
Like what's the difference? Like what do they need that's special versus like
they're going to possibly need more layers.
Okay.
And it's going to be a bit thicker and it's going to be a different type of material. So everything that's considered for the particular athlete is dependent upon how much thickness they need and what the type of impact.
Okay.
So how high the mouth guard is going to depend on if they have braces, if they have a difference in their arch in terms of where the teeth are. And so we take all these things into consideration when we're making the mouth guard, depending on the models that we receive and the feedback that we get from the particular client.
So do you send like a kit out and someone does an impression and sends it back to you? Like what are the logistics exactly of getting
it? Right, so right now we have impression material where they'll use it and they'll send it to us. If it's a child, at this point we've been going to different teams and meeting up with them and actually doing the impressions for them.
Okay.
So it depends on, you know, how many people. So if it's for a team, we're actually able to send someone to go and take the impressions.
Oh, wow.
If it's for individual people, that's different. The difference with us is that we also have special equipment that's quite expensive that we use to actually make the guard. So the amount of pressure is at 100 psi, which is allowing complete conformity to the anatomy of the teeth, which you won't get from like a boil and bite mouth guard that you buy at Walmart and you boil it and put in your mouth.
Right.
And so that's kind of where the difference is. And we've been able to differentiate ourselves because I'm a certified sports dentist. I've taken the training to be able to deal with traumatology in dentistry as well as mouth guard fabrication. So every design goes through me, and we're able to make sure that the end product is of quality.
And where are they made? Where are the mouth guards made?
They're made in, right now they're made in a lab with the different dental materials,
Gotcha.
Yes.
Wow, so it sounds like some boss stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of, it's a lot of work. There's different type of machines that can actually fabricate a mouth guard, but it's very rare for someone to get the top of the line machinery that you need that's pretty much automated. So, I've seen all the different types of materials. We did like 3 years of research on the different mouth guards and met with different people and did a lot of work before deciding to go forward with this. So it's been some time.
Yeah, so everything, and it's I have this conversation with lots of folks. It's like you see the end result, and like, wow, that's a great idea. I can't believe I didn't think of it, or I didn't do that. But no one sees like the 10 years of hustle behind it, or like the thought. I'm sure you had this idea years ago, and then just kind of like developing it and working through it. It really shows a tremendous amount of determination, and just
right. I think like you, I'm really about the work.
Yeah.
Like I like the work. I like the process of doing things. Like I don't necessarily need like the awards or accolades or the pat on the back. I actually like the work that goes behind getting something to a point where I think it's of quality. Yeah. So I think that's what we share in common. It's
the process.
Interesting where these things take us. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk a little bit about just your Gary Vee. I'm a huge Gary Vee fan, obviously, as I'm sure you are. How did like that happen? I was really like, when I was reading that chapter about you, I was like, totally blown away. How did you get involved? Like, how did Gary find out about you? Like, how has that changed your life? Are you still involved with Gary? Just maybe speak a little bit about that.
So, how I got involved, so I had, on his podcast, he actually asked for entries for the book. So he said, if anybody's interested in being in the book, reach out to me. So prior to that, I had been following him for obviously many years. And whenever I can, which I think is like the secret sauce to any relationship, if you can give value to somebody, do it. If you can find a way to help that person in any way, do it. And so that's kind of like my motto with everyone. If someone asks me for a favor or wants something, I try to, or if they just put something out into the universe, like I need help with this, or they write something on Twitter, I need help with this, I try to find a way to help them. And so that's kind of my approach has been with him and other people. And when he ended up asking about that only on his podcast, I think that was actually put out there, I submitted an entry as to why I would like him to consider me, and eventually I got a call from someone from his team asking me to give more information, and then it just kind of rolled from there.
That's awesome. So do you go to book signings and stuff like that? I mean, you're a celebrity.
Do I go to his book signing?
No, I mean, I've seen you at some events and stuff. So I'm, like any local stuff. Like, I've seen you at some of like the Gary events, and some pictures and stuff like that.
So I ended up at one point speaking at Wine Library.
Okay, that's what I saw.
With a couple other people from the book.
Right.
And we were just talking about our experience. So that ended up being a really interesting thing. I did go to one event that Gary has every year to raise money for Crohn's disease.
Oh, wow.
At that point, I was able to meet him and finally thank him for including me in the book. So we've kind of developed a little bit of a relationship since then. Yeah. I know one of my best friends is friends with him. So it's, I know some people on the team, so we have a bit of a relationship, but I understand also that, I'm just forever grateful, and I
Yeah.
just constantly, if I can give value back to him, I try to find ways. It's not necessarily in small things like book signings and things like that. It's more like finding value in, maybe possibly trying to introduce him to somebody that he's trying to meet or things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's such a great story. So what's next? Like,
Yeah. So I'm just kind of ride this wave in terms of, I've been doing quite a bit of speaking now. So I speak more on social media and business. And so that's a huge
cool.
interest of mine
Yeah.
that I want to take further.
So like dental meetings or like,
So I've done a couple non-dental, like with just people who are in the business space. And I've done a majority of it with dentists.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking to kind of branch out into all sectors, because I think that my story is basically similar to yours in that, I'm coming up from a place of pretty much nothing, had to get my own patients, and how I went through the trials and tribulations of starting to do direct mail, originally, and then moving on to social media, which has paid huge dividends on the advertising side as well as the content side.
Yeah.
And then constantly trying to branch out from there and staying on top of things, and just basically relaying to people the mindset to be able to be successful.
Okay. So do you manage your own social media? Like, are you posting yourself on Instagram?
Currently I'm managing. I have some help with that, but I'm pretty much managing everything. I'm doing all my own comments, responding to everyone myself. I pretty much don't sleep.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah. But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun for me,
I will say though, I'm looking for help now.
Yeah.
I definitely need help. I can't do it myself to keep it at the right level based on everything that's been going on.
Totally.
And I've been slacking a bit recently.
Yeah.
So I see that happening and I'm aware of it and I'm trying to find a solution now.
Well, let's not forget, you're running a practice, you're doing speaking, you're doing all the musically stuff. You're a wife and a mother of two. Jesus, how it always amazes me like how much my wife can accomplish, the stuff that she does around. I mean, how do you guys do it? Your time management skills must be, I don't know, how do you do it? I have no idea how you can possibly do all that.
I actually follow Getting Things Done. It's a book by David Allen.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much a strong believer in that.
Yeah.
I actually originally, when I first started, I thought it was very hokey. Like I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I'm not going to spend all my time planning. But whenever I am at my best, it's when I've been following.
So like, what are some specifics, for folks that have not read that book? Like what?
Sure. Yeah. So Getting Things Done is kind of like a philosophy on how to keep track of things. And how I see it, it's more like there's a lot of loops in our life. Like, for instance, I left a message with someone and then following up on that message eventually. Being able to capture all those loops is really important. And so this system allows for that. So there's different ways. You have like your horizons of focus, the way you look at things, what are the most important things, you kind of write those out, is what his premise is. And then from there are different levels down to the nitty gritty of writing down each task, how it needs to happen, and putting it into different categories. So let's say you have a list of to call, a list for waiting for, a list of at computer. So if I'm at a computer for 2 hours, I can take care of all my items that are listed under the at computer list. And so, I'm not really doing justice to his philosophy, but it's basically an idea of maximizing your time depending on where you are, the context of where you are, and the things that you need to do, and making sure you don't forget. So I have a list for waiting for. I'm waiting for Dr. Mudgil to get back to me on that dermatology consult. He said he was going to call me. So I'll make sure on June 10th, I'm going to get that call back. Yeah. So things like that has made a big difference for me. I'm all about paper too, as opposed to everybody else.
Are you serious?
Yes, it's the best for me.
It's like a book, like a daily planner, like that type of thing?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Wow, that's shocking.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm lugging around like a paper planner, but yeah, it's the only thing that works.
Yeah, well, whatever
you
works.
You have so many different projects to manage. I have to see it in front of me. I can't have it like in my phone.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, everyone has their own system. So I'm very organized in the same way. And for me, the email is like the way I organize myself. I use like that mail app, and I kind of you can basically like push things off for a day or a few hours, and so it's the same thing. It's all about like lists and organization because there's just like a lot of moving parts, And,
yes.
But I think for a mother, there are a lot more moving parts. I'm a very involved dad, but I would say like my wife literally does it all, food for the kids, goes to Costco, it's like working these jobs. It's crazy. It's a next level, I think, that, that women have, definitely an advantage over the guys. There's, I don't know what it is, but something special there. But it always impresses me so much when I see someone like yourself who's got this incredible hustle, but is also, you have a household also, and your kids. And
I appreciate that. I think for me, what's been difficult is I always felt as I was growing up that I was always doing a bunch of things very mediocrely, right? So I was cooking my cooking was mediocre, like my, skills here was mediocre. That's how I felt. And I realized that I was doing pretty well. I was just being extremely self-critical.
Right.
But I've seen that all of a sudden, like everything has gotten really good. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's unbelievable how just in a few hints here and there have changed, everything. And so I think it's always like, if I could give any words of encouragement to other people, it's, you have to keep doing what you think is right, but kind of give yourself a break. Like you don't have to be, you don't have to worry about, if you're not giving a completely well-balanced meal every day. Like once in a while, it's okay. Like don't be so hard on yourself.
Right.
It's just because other mothers are on the PTA, don't think like you have to be at every your child's event. Like it doesn't have to be that way. You have to do whatever it is you can do for yourself first, so that you can be the parent that you want to be to your child if you have children.
It's like when you're on the plane, you're supposed to put the oxygen mask on yourself first so you can help other people, right?
Right.
Wow. I mean, this was awesome. I don't want to take up your whole day, although I could probably talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I agree with that. We can both talk for a while.
Yeah, so we'll have to get together sometime and pick and do it more in person. But I thought it's really been such an honor to do this with you. I'm a big fan. And I think you have an awesome story. I think people are going to love to hear this. And I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah, so I will. I'll keep you posted on when we're going to post this.
Okay,
all right. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have an awesome day.
You too.
Take care.
And tell your wife she's a badass. Now.
Yeah. Listen, that coming from one boss like yourself too. Yeah, I will definitely tell her because you're definitely a boss, and she's a boss too. So, all right.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. The video of this podcast can be found on my YouTube channel and on Instagram TV. You can find me on Instagram at dr_Mudgil. Let's get it.